Hello, everybody. We'd like to thank you for joining our session today, our first webinar in a series of 6. This session today is on remote learning through Teams, digital delivery for student success, and reducing teacher stress. We will be taking questions at the end of the session, about the last 15 minutes, so if you can hold tight asking any questions until that time, that would be wonderful. If you do have questions as we go, please feel free to put them in the chat window and we'll answer them at the end of our presentation. With that, we're going to go ahead and jump into Teams, talk about setting up Teams and some best practices and tips and tricks to help get you started. For those of you new to Teams, to access Teams for the first time, if you don't have it downloaded on your computer, you can go to office.com and sign in with your school district email address and password. Once you've done that, you will be logged into office.com, where you can then go and select the Teams icon. I'm going to go ahead and select the Teams icon. You may be prompted to log in again. If you are, go ahead and log in. If not, it will load Teams and present you with the Teams interface. The first thing we want to do anytime we are working in Teams, we want to go and download the desktop app. This is a much better experience for both you and your students. However, if your students happen to have another type of a device like a Chromebook, they can go to the Google Play Store to download the Teams app there, or they can use the online experience. To download the Teams app, we're going to go up to the top right-hand corner and select our picture or our initials and then choose to download the desktop app. You can also install Teams on a mobile app, so on your Android or Apple phone. These are great to have, so you've got Teams right there in your pocket. Once you've got it downloaded, it'll take just a minute for Teams to download, and then you'll be prompted to log in or to open Teams. So I'm going to navigate away from the web version here for just a minute, and I have Teams open on my computer. It looks exactly like the web. The difference is, and the way that you'll know the difference is that in the web experience, and I'm going to just pull these two windows down so they're side by side. The web experience, you'll see the URL across the top here, and the desktop experience does not have that. Again, these operate very similarly. However, the desktop feature has a lot more functionality. As soon as you get the desktop app downloaded, the best thing to do is to go and make sure that you have the latest and greatest updates, and also that you've checked for the new Teams meeting experience. To do that, first we want to come up again to our picture, and we want to choose check for updates. As soon as it's updated, it'll pop up and tell you if you've got the latest experience. And then the next thing we want to do is go into settings, and we want to make sure that we check the turn on new meeting experience option. This is going to make sure that you have all of the latest and greatest features in Teams, like together mode, large gallery, the new Teams meeting bar, breakout rooms, amongst other things. And as Microsoft rolls out new functions and features, having that button turned on will make sure that you have those latest updates. So once you are in Teams, you've got the latest experience, it's time to either build a team or take an existing team that your district may have created for you. Now, some of you work for districts who are using School Data Sync, and your teams are automatically created and populated with your students' information, and they're ready to go. You just have to go in and customize them. For some of us, we don't work for districts that are using Data Sync, so we have to go create our own team. To create your own team, you're going to come down to the very bottom left-hand corner of your Teams window, and you're going to choose Join or Create a Team. And then you're going to select Create a Team. From here, you'll have an option for class team, professional learning community, staff team, or other. For what we're going to look at today, since we're talking about working with students, we're going to choose class team. You're going to go ahead and give your team a name. So mine is Morgan's class, and I'm going to choose next. From here, I can now choose to add students into my team or other teachers. I'm going to go ahead and skip adding students because I'm going to give my students a join code to be able to add themselves to my team, so I'm not entering so many students' names. If you happen to have littles who you're worried about them being able to do that or not, you can always come in here and add them by typing in their name. So I'm going to type in a coworker who's going to be my student for this example. So Nathan is my student. again, just typed their name and I chose add. I can also add teachers by selecting the teacher option and then typing in my teachers' names. I'm going to go ahead and choose to skip adding anybody to my team. And now I have a team here to get started with. So I've got Morgan's class and a general tab. Before we start talking about customizing our teams, I want to just bring your awareness to some of the different parts of a team. So the first space is the far left-hand side of our teams, where we see things like activity, chat, teams, assignments, calendar, calls, and files. Now, yours might look slightly different than mine based on different functions that your district has turned on, but this space generally looks the same and is called the Me space. So this happens to be around things that are pertinent to you. The activity space is always the very best space to check every day. That will tell you anything that has recently happened with the team. So any new assignments that have been created, if anybody's posted to the conversation space or app mentioned you in the conversation space, all of that happens in the activity area. So it's very easy for you to just go and see right there what's happened. This also is a place I encourage my students to go check every day so they know exactly what's happened with our team. The next space down is chat. Chat is for one-to-one or one-to-few communication. So this is more like instant messaging of the late 90s, early 2000s, where you're having that one-on-one type communication. Now, some districts have turned off the chat feature between for students, so they're not able to communicate without supervision. So your students may not have that option, but chat is a wonderful way for you to connect with other educators and stay up to date on what's going on, a little bit better than sending an email sometimes because it's that real-time communication. The next space down is Teams. Teams will show you any teams that you're currently a member of. The assignment space will show you any assignments for whatever teams that you happen to have that are class teams. For your students, when they select that, it will show them any assignments that have been given to them. The next space down is calendar. The calendar will show you anything that is currently on your calendar. Now, a lot of times people are concerned because they think this is a team calendar, and it's not. This is your individual calendar, and it is tied to your Outlook calendar. So you may see things on your Outlook calendar show up in Teams and vice versa. But this is a great way just to get a good overview of what you've got going on for the week. The next space down is calls. Where you can call people within your organization. So if calling is turned on for your students, you can call them or you can call coworkers. And then the last space is files. And your files consist of two parts. There's file space within Microsoft Teams. So any files that you have that are related to your team are stored in this space. And then also your OneDrive. So this is great for students who may not go to office.com to access OneDrive. They can come right here. Again, Teams is that one-stop shopping, everything that you need for kids. They can access their OneDrive. Any files that have been created by them, any new files they want to create can all be done right here within Teams. If you happen to have other types of cloud storage like Dropbox or Google Drive, you can add them here within Teams. You're not just limited to OneDrive. So that's the Me space. Again, activity, chat, teams, assignments, calendar, calls, and files. You can also add some other apps in this space if you choose to, or you can come down to the apps button and look at some additional apps that may be available within your organization. I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to Teams, and I'm going to go to Morgan's class team, and we're going to look at the next pane over, which is our team space. So this will show you any teams that you have that are created or any teams that you're a member of. If you have teams that you have listed here that either you don't really participate in or maybe were created but you're not going to use, you can manage their visibility by selecting the ellipse or the three dots next to the team name. You can choose to delete the team, or you can choose to leave a team, or you can choose to hide a team. I often like to hide any teams that I'm not currently working on by clicking on hide, and then you'll notice that there's a hidden teams drop-down menu here, and it will show you any hidden teams. So they're not right there in front of your face, they're still there and available, but you're only focused on what you're currently working on. So I have my Morgan's class team here. Again, I have my general channel. This is a non-negotiable channel that comes as part of Teams. And then in the general channel, you have, and actually within any channel, you've got this space here in the middle that is kind of the we space. And this is where we interact as part of our team. In the we space, you have conversation areas. You also have tabs across the top. Now, we'll talk about these tabs here in just a little bit, but you'll notice on the general tab, you have things like posts, files, class notebook, assignments, grades, and then the plus sign. So with that, we're going to jump over here and we're going to talk about creating channels. The easiest way to create a channel is to click on the ellipse next to your team name and choose Add Channel. This is going to give you a place to type your channel, the name of your channel, also decide if it's going to be standard. So standard means everyone in the team can see it, or if it's going to be a private channel, which means only you and the person or persons that you've invited to that channel can see. I'm going to go ahead and make my channel just a standard channel. And I like to have a couple of channels set permanently in my team. And this is just a kind of a best practice tips and tricks that you might consider. So I like to have a chit chat channel or a social channel. This is a place where my students can come and have conversation that's monitored. I can keep track of what they're saying. If anything inappropriate is said, I can delete that comment. But in this new remote, hybrid, online learning environment, whatever we want to call it, our students need a place to get social. So by providing them a channel to do that in, you've provided that platform for them to come together and create community. I'm going to go ahead and choose to automatically show this channel in everyone's list, and I'm going to go ahead and choose Add. That's going to add that channel into my list. I'm going to repeat that process for several other channels I like to create. Again, I'm going to click on the ellipse. I'm going to choose to add a channel. This time I'm going to choose a channel or have a channel called Questions. This again is a place for my students to come together and ask questions that might be relevant to the class. I'm going to automatically show that channel to everyone in the list and say Add. And then from here, I'll continue to repeat that process. And oftentimes we think of, well, what channels should I create? Channels can be a lot of different things. You can have channels based on content that you're currently teaching in your class. So maybe if you're an elementary teacher, you might have channels around language arts, math, science, art, social studies. Secondary teachers, you might break it down by units of study or by weeks or topics. So if you were an English teacher, you might have a channel for writing and grammar. You might have one on writing tips and tricks, maybe another one for a book club. You could have so many different channels and so many options. I'm going to go ahead and create another couple of channels just again for example purposes. So I'm going to select the ellipse. I'm going to add a channel. This time I'm going to add one that's called Virtual Class. And this is going to be where we're going to hold any virtual meetings or any virtual class time. So when I schedule meetings with students, this is going to be where I'm going to do it rather than doing it in my general channel. And you'll see in a little bit why we're going to do that. I'm going to go ahead, again, make this a standard channel, automatically show on everyone's channel. Go ahead and say Add. And it will create that channel. Now some other channels, again, like some examples that I gave that you might want to create. I'm going to do language arts, automatically favorite that one, add it. Notice that I put a number 1 in front of it. So if you want your channels to go in a specific order, if you number them, it will make them go in an order. Otherwise, they'll just go alphabetic. So another channel, math, again, standard, automatic for everyone. And then my final channel is going to be a science channel. And I can go in later and add more if I need to. Now, one last channel I want to create is an accommodations channel. So this channel is going to be for any students who I might need to have some specific conversations with and do some accommodations. And this channel is going to be private. So again, I'm going to click on the 3 dots. I'm going to choose to add a channel. This one is going to be called accommodations. And I'm going to make this one a private. I'm going to choose next, and then this is where I'm going to be prompted to invite students to this channel. So any students that I might be working with in small groups, they would be a great great people to add to this channel. I can also add other teachers who might be helping me. So a teaching assistant, a student teacher, a co-teacher, somebody else who might be working with these kids. For now, I'm going to go ahead and skip adding them. So I'm going to choose skip, and you'll notice that that channel has now come into my list and it has a little lock next to it. So again, this is a private channel. Only those that I've invited to this channel will be able to see it. Now, just a word of caution, because we've seen this happen with many teachers. Some teachers think, oh, great, I'm going to create a channel for every one of my students. I'm going to make it private so that I can have one-on-one communication with them or accommodate them individually. The only challenge with doing that is that you're limited to 32 channels. And so if you happen to have 28 students and then you want to go in and add some content level channels, you're going to run out of channels. So instead, you want to think about maybe using private channels for small groups or small groups of students who might need accommodations rather than creating channels for individual students. Okay, so let me just cover that one more time. You want to avoid creating individual private channels for students. Instead, use private channels for small groups where students can come together. Okay? All right, so with that, we've got our channels created. Notice again, as I go to my general channel, I have some tabs here across the top. When I go to my language arts channel, those channels happen to be different, and that will be the same for each channel within my team. This allows me to be able to customize these channels. So for my language arts channel, I can come in and add files in the file space. So maybe these are files that are relevant to the language arts channel. Keep in mind that any files that are added in this space, students do have the ability to edit. So you want to always make sure to keep your originals in your own teacher OneDrive and then upload anything that you might want students to access here. That being said, we will show you how to create assignments in another session, one of our other webinar series. So you will, with assignments, you'll be distributing files to students for themselves so they can have their own copy to work on. So file space is mostly for things that you maybe want students to look at. Notes is tied to OneNote Class Notebook, which we'll get to in another one of our webinar series. When I select it, nothing will come up yet because we have not built the OneNote notebook. The last place we want to look at is the plus sign to add a tab. So our tabs allow us to add all sorts of different information. I can add a form, I can add a website, a Flipgrid. There's lots of different options that you have. Now, based on your school district's tenant, your options might be different here. If you're not sure, so like let's say you don't see Flipgrid in your list, you can come up here to the search option and type like Flipgrid, and if it is available, you can select it. If it's not available, you can, there's some workarounds, and most of those workarounds come as a result of a website. So I'm going to add the Tween Tribune website to my team because I want my students to be doing some daily reading on topics that are grade level and Lexile level appropriate for them. So I'm going to go ahead and choose website. I'm going to give my website a name, so Tween Tribune. And then I'm going to type or copy and paste my URL here. Once I've typed my URL here, you always want to make sure that it has an S, so HTTPS. If your website doesn't for some reason, just hand type an S in there. And then you can choose to have it post to this channel about this tab. I often like to unselect that just because I don't want my channel to get cluttered with things that I might be posting. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now the Tween Tribune website is going to be embedded right here within my language arts channel. So now I can direct my students to go read an article that might be of interest to them. And I can continue to add other relevant tabs across the top. Now, right now, there's no way to order them and have them stay in a certain order. So just make sure that you name them appropriately so that your students can easily find them. If you happen to be working with littles and you have a Windows 10 computer, You can use the emoji keyboard to give visual indicators to your students. So to do that, you press the Windows key and period, and that will bring up your emoji keyboard. From here, you can choose emojis that might help your students to have a visual cue on something that they need to look for. So I could add an orange heart before the name of my website. So my next website I'm going to type in is Seesaw. I know lots of teachers who are using the Seesaw website for their littles. So I'm going to go ahead and type Seesaw and put the URL in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and say save. And that's now going to add that tab right to the top. And again, there's that little visual indicator. So you can do that emoji keyboard with your channels. You can also do it for tabs across the top. Remember, the shortcut for that is the Windows key on your keyboard and period if you are on a PC. So to engage our students, one of the ways that we can get their attention is through conversations. Conversations, once we click on it, will pop open a box, and your conversations might look slightly different if you have not updated your team. Yours might look just like what you're seeing in my window, but once you update to that new Teams experience, you'll see the purple conversations button. Now, conversations can simply just be you typing content in here for students to read. You could click on the format button to pop your window open and give you a little bit more formatting experience. This is more like how we would format an email. So you add a subject, and then you could type your instructions or information that you wanted teachers to, or excuse me, that you may want your students to respond to. If you really want to get students' attention, you can choose, instead of a new conversation, to make an announcement. Announcements are just a very quick visual way to get students to notice that you've posted something. So I'm going to go ahead and type a welcome message for my students. All right, so I've typed my message here for my students. I've given them a welcome. I want to go make this just a little bit more fun and festive for them. So to do that, I can either change the color, or I can choose to have my own illustration. So I can upload an image, or I can choose an illustration. Now, I have a image that I've created. It's similar to a Bitmoji classroom, but it's actually a Bitmoji banner that I want my students to just kind of have a fun experience in my class. Again, this is not interactive. It's just a banner that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and select it and say done. And now that little banner's across the top. And I'm going to send this message to my students. So now when they come in here, they can see their welcome message and some instructions that I've given them. So fun way to help engage students. Now currently this channel is open so that students could actually come in here and respond to this message or actually even start their own conversation. I like to have a little bit more control over my team and especially my general channel. I want this to be the space where my students get information from me. So I'm going to come up to my general channel. I'm going to select the ellipse next to the channel name, and I'm going to choose to manage this channel. By managing this channel, I have the option so anyone can post. That's the default. I can change it so anyone can post and then everyone will be alerted. This is not typically something we use in school. This might be something that you use with teachers amongst yourselves, but not necessarily with students to teachers. But the option that I'm going to choose is only owner can post messages. That means only me or one of my co-teachers can post to this channel. So that now makes it so students can't come in and reply. They're also not even able to go start a new conversation. If I want my students to engage somewhere, I might encourage them to go to the Chit Chat channel where they can post whatever they want to. This again is monitored by me, but it gives them a place to come together to be social. So I'm going to go ahead and do another announcement for my students. And again, just an example for our session today. So I'm going to choose new conversation. I'm going to select the A with the paintbrush on it, the format button. I'm going to change from new conversation to announcements. Give a little headline here. So chat here. So I've given my students some instructions about using the space to be social and to chat, and then reminding them that I can delete any inappropriate comments. So again, to put an illustration on here, I can choose, instead of this time of uploading an image, I can choose a built-in illustration. So I can choose one of the ones that are provided by Microsoft, and there's lots in here under general, classes, and then clubs and activities. I'm just going to go ahead and choose the cute little dragon and say done, and that's going to add that to this space. And then I can send this. Once I do that, students can come in here, they can type a new conversation, or they can reply to each other. This again is that great space for students to come together and to be social without cluttering up some of your other channels, like your general channel or your curriculum channels. The questions channel is a great place for students to come together to ask questions. So if they have a question to you, or they want to ask questions of each other, this is a perfect place to do it. Again, I can start a new conversation. This time I'm just going to say, hey students, post your questions here, and you are welcome to help answer as well. So that gives my students the ability to come in here now and ask questions if they have any questions pertaining to the class. All right, last couple of things in our channel. So we have set up our channels. We've customized the top by adding tabs. I have set some of my channels up, like my general channel, to be moderated, so I've managed that channel. You can change some of the other settings in some of your other channels, not necessarily to only owners can post, but I can come in here to manage channel and choose for it to be moderated. So that means that before anything is posted, I have to approve it. Now, I don't generally recommend this just because you'll spend more time approving what the kids are writing than teaching. So I like, whenever possible, to leave my channels open and give my kids the ability to just come in here and chat. Again, if they've made a comment that's inappropriate, you can delete that. And I will show you how to do that here in just a minute. So some other management that can happen with your class, if you click on the ellipse next to your team name, make sure that you're on your team name and you go to the ellipse, you can choose to manage your team. In your team management, this is where you can go in and add members. So if you wanted to add a co-teacher, you could do that by selecting add member, or if you wanted to add students, you could do it here as well. The channel setting will show you any channels that you've created. It will give you the ability to go in and check if you want them to show for your members or not. And then also you have the option if you want to delete them if you choose not to use them anymore. And then finally, the settings. And just wanted to point out a few things in here. We're not going to cover everything, but just a few things. So team theme, if you want to change the picture to something relevant to your class, you can. You can even upload your own picture if you wanted to. You can also come in here so once you've made the change, it will take you back out to your team name. So to get back in, you're going to click on the ellipse. You're going to go to Manage Team. Settings again. Member permission is the one I want to point out to you. By default, the last three options of member permissions are turned on. So owners can delete messages, give members the option to delete messages, and then give members the option to edit their messages. I typically like to uncheck the last two. I don't want my students to be able to edit or delete their messages, and that just helps in case somebody posts something inappropriate and you need to go screen grab it or show your school leadership before deleting it. So you want to uncheck those last two, but you want to make sure to check owners can delete messages, so that will give you the ability to delete any messages that the students might post. And then team code, you can generate a team code. So this is great. So you don't have to add students into your team manually. You can give them this code by either displaying it on the screen or posting it in an email or on your website, however you're communicating with your students, and then giving them instructions to copy that code and then to come into Teams and choose join or create a team, and then they'll have the option to paste the code, and that will automatically enroll them into your team. So this is a great time-saving feature for you, and especially is great for our students who are secondary or older kids, maybe even down to third grade. And then finally, fun stuff, the GIFs, the stickers, and the memes. Right now, I like to have those turned on because I think kids need to have a way to express themselves that might not necessarily be through writing, especially when they're in a remote learning environment. So I typically leave these on. However, if you find that it's being abused, you can always go and turn those off. Okay, so we have now just talked about our management of the team. So again, to get there, I select the ellipse next to my team name. I choose manage team, and then I have the different options in here to be able to manage my team. So we have now built our team. We've got our custom channels here. We've got custom tabs across the top. We've talked about posting in the conversation space. The last thing we want to talk about is deleting messages or marking messages that either maybe a student has posted, you've posted, that you need to do some management to. So I'm going to come down here to my questions channel, and I've got the note that I posted to my students. If I choose to delete that, and this applies to any message in your team, to delete it, you simply mouse over it until you get the box that pops up in the top left-hand corner, or excuse me, the top right-hand corner. You can use the emojis to show, or your students can use these emojis to show that they've seen the message, or they can click on the ellipse, or you can, to save this message, delete it, copy the link to it. It can also be translated, or the immersive reader can be used on it. So if a student posts an inappropriate message, you can come in here and choose to delete, and that will delete the message. If you have students who might be emerging readers or struggling readers or speak another language, they have the option to choose translate or the immersive reader. We're going to talk more about these options in one of our other upcoming webinars on accessibility. So keep an eye out for that, and hopefully you'll join us for one of those upcoming sessions. So that gives you the ability to, again, manage any post that happens in any of your channels. So with that, we have talked about creating and building our team. The last thing I want to talk about is a virtual class time. So virtual class time, you can schedule meetings within your team where you hold virtual class sessions. So maybe this is for remote learning or hybrid learning, online learning, but this is a way for you and your students to meet. Now, I like to hold my virtual class time in a virtual class channel. And the reason for that is it gives a place for the students to come and they can engage in the chat during the meeting. Also, if I choose to record the meeting, the recording will come here and it gives them a place to go. Lots of times by default, when we schedule meetings, they happen either outside of a team or they happen in our general channel, and then it kind of clutters things up. So I like to hold my virtual class time in my virtual class channel. To set up a virtual class meeting, I'm going to come up to the top right hand corner and I have an option to meet, or click the down arrow to schedule a meeting. Now, Meet Now is like an on-demand meeting, so this would be great if you wanted to open up a meeting and invite students to come in and out of that meeting. So maybe you're having a whole group meeting, you're saying, okay, Nathan, let's pop out and go over to our accommodations channel to meet to talk about your reading or your math, whatever it is. So Meet Now is a great way to have that impromptu meeting. To schedule a meeting, that would be something that would go on your students' calendars and they could very easily see what time and date that meeting is scheduled. You're going to choose to schedule a meeting. Going to go ahead and give it a title. So I'm going to call this virtual class. I'm not going to add any required attendees because we're going to set this meeting up to be only for our team members, and we're going to tell them where we want that meeting to go. So I can choose the time and date that I have my class time. So I'm going to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning on September 14th. And I'm going to choose for this to repeat daily. I want to meet with my students every day. I can even come in here and customize when that ends. So let's say that your school system is thinking that by maybe after Christmas break or after the holiday break, students are going to come back, and maybe we'll be back face to face. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that on January 4th of 2021, we're going to come back face to face, I hope. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Notice, because I chose that particular channel to schedule my meeting, that it actually scheduled a channel meeting. So this just means that's where our students are going to meet. I can go ahead and add any additional information into the space. So maybe what we're going to be talking about or anything else related to my class, I can add in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose to send this message. So I'm going to choose send, and now that message is being sent to my students. It's also being posted in the virtual class channel. Now, a couple of things to be aware of. By default, when you schedule a meeting, everybody is set to be a presenter and everybody is set to bypass the lobby. So we're going to go in and make some adjustments to this invite so that we have a little bit more control over our meeting. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on the meeting. And this time, I'm going to choose meeting options. Now, you have to schedule a meeting and then send it before you can come in and choose meeting options. So that option was not available before. So I'm going to go ahead and choose meeting options. So once that meeting option opens, I can choose who can bypass the lobby. So if I want my students to be parked in the lobby, you will have an option in here for only you to bypass the lobby. That means anybody else, your students, they are going to be parked in a lobby until you allow them through. Now, currently, there's no way to have a co-presenter, like a co-teacher, and allow them to bypass the lobby. So you're going to want to make sure that you're going to want to join the call ahead of time and then ask them to do the same thing. And then once they're in the lobby, you could admit just them to come into your call. So that works great if you have a co-teacher or co-presenter. You can choose if you want to let callers bypass the lobby, and then if you want it to be announced when they join or leave. I think that's super distracting, so I'm going to go ahead and choose no on that. And then finally, I'm going to choose who can present, and I'm going to choose only me. That means I have control over my meeting. I'm the only one who can present. And I also have the ability to mute the attendees. They do not have the ability to present or mute each other or kick each other off of a call, which is really important. Allow attendees to unmute. This option may not be there quite yet for you, but it is a feature that is rolling out soon. So I can choose no, and that's going to give them a hard mute. If I choose yes, then that gives them the ability to come off mute. Now, this again is a brand new feature, so you may not see this yet in your tenant, but just know that it's coming soon. So I'm going to go ahead and say save. And I have now saved those meeting options for that reoccurring virtual class time that we're going to be holding every day between now and the 4th of January of 2021. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that window and pop back over to my team, and I can go ahead and say close, and that meeting is now ready. So when I'm ready to join and when my students are ready to join, they can just simply come in and click right here on this link and choose to join the call, which is super awesome and really easy for them. Great visual. When that meeting does get started, right over next to your virtual class channel, you'll see a little camera button. So for your littles, this is something really great to teach them to keep an eye out for. Okay, so that is scheduling a virtual class time in as a channel meeting. Now we're going to talk about some other options in some of our other sessions as to ways to schedule some additional meetings. Maybe if you want to do parent meetings or you want to invite a guest speaker to your class, there's some additional ways that you can schedule meetings. But with that, we have essentially covered how to set up a team, some of the management features within teams, and some little best practices, tips, and tricks like setting up a chit chat channel, a questions channel, or a place to hold your virtual class time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting and allow you to come off mute or put your questions up in the chat window. And while we do that, if anybody has asked any questions in the chat window, I'm going to go ahead and just pop over there and look at those and answer, and give the rest of you time to kind of process and think about what questions you might have. For those of you that don't have any questions and feel like you've gotten everything answered, you are welcome to drop off the call. We hope you have a great, safe, healthy, and sane day, and all of your teaching is going wonderfully as we navigate this new way of learning in our remote environment.